Hey everybody, in this video we are going to explain all about what happens in the winter here in wonderful Pennsylvania, and to know what the difference is with snow, sleet, freezing rain, and regular old rain. Okay, and what ends up happening here is basically a summary of what we've been seeing in our phase changes. Okay, so in the winter, the clouds usually have cold air that is going to be less than 0 degrees Celsius or 32 Fahrenheit. Ugh, what an ugly word. All right, so there is cold air in this upper atmosphere. So what happens down here on the ground is going to depend on what the air is in between and what the temperature of the ground is going to be. Okay, so when we see snow and we have our lovely little Olaf here, okay, there is no melting occurring. And what we have is our gaseous, okay, water vapor up here in the clouds that is going to crystallize and form a solid. The whole air is cold all the way down, and the ground is cold, and it's going to stay there. So what is it called when we go directly from the gaseous to the solid phase? That's going to be deposition. And that's going to be when we see those lovely little spots of lace form all over the place. Okay? So, what then is sleet? Sleet is what most of you probably thought happened when it snowed. Okay, you have cold air, but in the air between the clouds and the ground, you have some warm air. So it goes from a gas, then it goes to a liquid, and then the liquid freezes to a solid. Okay, and that's where we get these little pellets of ice. And we've all seen the sleet storms that we have here in Abington, Pennsylvania. And we definitely see and feel all those little ping, 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 ping against the windshields or against our hoods or umbrellas or whatever you end up having. Okay, so we actually see gas forms a liquid and the liquid forms a solid. Notice the gas to a solid makes these really pretty lacy effects, but the gas to liquid to solid is going to give us our pellets. Okay, so then what is the difference between freezing rain and sleet and snow? So we end up having our gaseous vapor up here. The air is really, really warm. Okay, so we end up seeing it be a liquid, and then the ground is cold. And when the ground is cold, the rain freezes upon contact. Okay, and this is where it forms a solid on the ground. Okay, it's not going to form a solid in the air. And this is what is especially dangerous, and this is where we have a coating in ice all over the place, and it only takes a little bit to make a lot of damage. And then lastly, we have our traditional gaseous vapor up in the clouds, and then we get warm air, so we just get some condensation. And that condensation is going to form our liquid rain, and since the ground is going to be kind of warm also, it's just going to stay that way. All right, so to summarize what happens when it rains, or when it precipitates, I should say, in the winter, the rain is going to be your condensation. Okay, that's going to be your gas to your liquid. You have that warm air and warm ground, and it's going to stay that way. Your freezing rain is going to be when you end up having your rain that freezes on ground. Okay, and that's where you see that cold surface on ground contact. Sleet is going to be when you have your gas here, and it is going to make a liquid, and then it is going to make a solid in the cold air. Notice the freezing rain is on the ground, and this is on in the cold air, and this is where we get our pellets. And then lastly, we have our snow, which is our deposition, where we see gas to solid in the cold air, and the ground is cold as well, so you'll see it remain that way. So usually the last major question is, Miss Levin, what's hail? Okay, hail is going to occur when you have two very different temperature fronts. Okay, so you have a very big high and a very big low. So you end up seeing high and low pressure systems. And when these two systems collide, it makes a really, really, really dangerous storm. Okay, and there's going to be high winds whenever it hails. And what happens is when you end up having your clouds that contain your water and stuff in there, okay, the water pellets are going to fall down. Okay, you have your rain, and then they're going to freeze in part of the cold air, and it's going to push it back up into the cloud. It's going to coat with a little bit more water, and then it's going to come back down, freeze, and then the cold air is going to push it back up again, and then it's going to coat with a little bit more water, and it's going to come down and get pushed back up until it basically gets too heavy to be pushed back up, and that's where you have your pellets of hail that come down. Okay, so hail is definitely going to be the freezing from a liquid to a solid that gets pushed back up and down. This usually happens in the spring or in the summer or in the fall when you have these really, really high winds that get it to push back up. In some places down south, like in Texas, you can have hail the size of like softballs, which is really dangerous. It breaks lots and lots of different kinds of car windows and can make damage and hurt people. All right, so hail is definitely a super baddie. But that is the difference between hail, rain, freezing rain, sleet, and snow, according to our states of matter.